This video has flashing lights, loud noises, and really stupid topics. Do not witch hunt, harass, bully, or threaten anyone referenced or mentioned in this video. This was made purely out of boredom and humor, not out of malice towards any specific persons. Thank you for watching! Hi there! So if you don't know me, or if you do, my name is B. I have another YouTube channel and an Instagram where I post mostly art-related stuff, but truly I am a writer at heart. And this video is the first video on my second channel here that you're on, called B's Buzzwords. So welcome, and if you are rewatching this video some other time, welcome back, I guess. Thank you for sticking around. I wanted to do something sort of funny, but also not funny for a first video. I have made it a personal project for myself to write a parody of the book written by Norman Boutin called Empress Teresa. If you don't know anything about Empress Teresa, then you are a very lucky person. If you do, then have fun. So, for those of you that don't know anything about Empress Teresa, there are a lot of awesome videos out there. The first one I can think of off the top of my head is the series done by Crimson Rogue, who actually was my inspiration for this, where he does a review and a little bit of a deep dive into just the book Empress Teresa. It's sort of infamous, and Norman himself is infamous, so I'm not really going to go too heavy into detail about that. This really will just be a book-focused video and writing experience. So if you looked at the title of this video, this is strictly my review of Empress Teresa. Just the book itself. Like I said, I'm not going to go into anything about Norman or anything about like the backstories behind it. I am looking at this as an objective book, just as the book. I had to go out of my way to find a copy of this that I didn't have to pay for. I'm gonna be so honest with you. It is not worth paying for. On a audience level, this book is this book is a source of self-harm. Reading any more than a chapter at a time, or just any paragraph in this book, which, by the way, has a lot of revisions made to it. I don't exactly remember which version I have that has what revisions. This is me really quick in the editing phase. I googled actually how many pages Empress Teresa is. Apparently it's 468 pages long, but the copy that I read, which I found through Internet Archive, was only 319, so I do believe that I have one of the earlier editions non-edited yet. Yeah.
It's also important I put out that these books are all self-published by Norman and not by any company, and that the genre is as conflicting as the rest of this video is about to be.
That I have read, but there are quite a bit, and it is still so... It's... The best way to describe the experience of reading it, without giving away the summary, the story, any of it right now, is just... Was the guy who wrote this on acid when writing it? Because... damn. It's so... There are so many typos, so many grammar errors, basic sentence structure is out the window. It's a complete meltdown of just not greatness. So, we're we're gonna go after it for the plot. If I can do a good job at explaining it, the plot is extremely, extremely convoluted. Reading from just the Amazon blurb here, it says, the basic idea of Empress Teresa is simple. Teresa has to deal with a long list of difficult problems that would make most people give up, but Teresa triumphs because she has faith in a good future. She has hope. Empress Teresa captures youth for your consideration. And then it just goes on to a bunch of stuff about Taylor Swift, a bunch of hardship, and it has quotes from characters within the fictional universe talking about Teresa, and just other things put there from the author's perspective on this book. I also just want to point out that there is a quote at the top that says, the greatest book ever written, with the finest character ever created and her wholesome, enthralling adventures, wrote Andy on the United Kingdom, Amazon, UK, or whatever. I'm gonna call it bullshit, because knowing, at least a little bit, if you're quoting fictional characters to try and make your main character look good, then I doubt that you're quoting real people in real life to make your book look good. So, with all of that said, being a nothing burger, I will give you my own summary of this story. It can be boiled down into a couple sentences. 18-year-old Teresa gains powers after absorbing an alien she names Hal. She uses these powers to manipulate space, time, and matter, people, and how well she could throw a football, baseball, etc., which all lands her the task of fixing global problems arising from the poor management of the adults around her. To quote Teresa in the first half of the book, I was born, I had a good time, I was vaporized by a bomb. And then the rest of the book happens, and honestly the plot derails from there. So, an effective book review has a structure with introduction, summary, analysis, critical assessment, and conclusion. I don't feel that I can effectively give a review of this book by following those categories to a T. For example, the summary, you're supposed to offer a concise overview of the book's premise, main themes, and plot points without revealing major spoilers. This book doesn't have a plot! I mean, it has an idea, but certainly not a plot. And there's really no overarching theme to the book, other than what I can describe as ham-fisted religion. And see, this makes it hard to relate to Teresa's character, because she gets these godlike qualities from Hal, while still believing in, I believe, the Catholic God, if I remember. And yet, it's not really ever brought up how God has anything to do with it. It's just sort of, she prays after she has a problem, and then she still is fixing it herself with her own godlike powers. So really, no theme, no, sense of importance. There's no really premise other than, hey, this girl gets powers. That's really it. And I can't not spoil the book, because the book spoils itself in most of the summaries that I've looked and tried to gather information from. I mean, even Fandom Wiki is over here spoiling some of the introductory problems with their synopsis. After an attempted assassination by the US president, she goes on to use those powers to resolve several world problems, but mostly the book describes her receiving adulation from an adoring public. moving on to the analysis side of things, discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the book, discuss the writing style, character development, and pacing, I also feel like that's going to be hard to do. I'm in the middle of my analysis of this book, and the only strengths that it has is that it can put somebody to sleep. If you're looking for a turn your brain off situation, this is absolutely perfect for that, because you don't have to think. You really don't have anything to sink your teeth into. You don't have anything to hold on to and keep in your brain. There's a lot of forgettable plot points, because again, there's no plot. And there's a lot of forgettable characters, so development between any character is just sort of, I didn't like Teresa, now I do like Teresa. And that is a huge, huge weakness, because it means that the characters and the main character is unrelatable. There is a word for a character that is sort of the perfect image of anything and can do no wrong. They call that, in the modern context, a Mary Sue or Bella Swan character.
I wasn't planning on it. I just died of your arms. That's suspicious.
There's a lot of criticism on how we would describe Teresa as a Mary Sue or a Bella Swan. But in my personal opinion, which I probably shouldn't give during the analysis segment, she is the textbook definition of one. In the book, Norman uses Teresa to reference the Hunger Games. For example, Katniss. She has like a throwaway line about feeling like that girl from the Hunger Games.
I beg your pardon?
Except she had 23 assassins and she has thousands or something like that, or just one. Whichever part of the book I was at the time, reading my notes wise. And I walked through the lobby, past the security people, hotel guests, and that one permitted television crew. Most of them looked as sad as I was. I got to the meeting room and dropped my bottom in the chair. The PM wore the most sympathetic look he could muster. He let me speak first. It's rough in the big leagues. I didn't do anything and people want me dead. It's wrong. Why do people do the wrong thing? People who have no conscience think everybody lacks one. They fear you. You can kill me if you want. Hal will just move to somebody else. It could be anybody. Hal wouldn't know the difference between Joan of Arc and Adolf Hitler. You want to try your luck? Lord, no. I feel like that girl in the Hunger Games, except that she only had 23 assassins to worry about. What are my chances? And, that is not a good comparison. Katniss had, first of all, not assassins. She had other terrified or more equipped teenagers fighting for their lives against her because of some stupid symbolic thing that the adults made her out to be. Katniss is a great example of a flawed character. She is selfish, she is, hot-headed, temperamental, but she also grows a lot from that. She, biggest plot point here, goes from detesting Peeta in a sense to doing everything she can to fight to save him. She doesn't realize that she is actively in love with him. She keeps denying her feelings until towards the end of the series, but she isn't fighting to rebel against the Capitol. She isn't fighting to be the Mockingjay. She is a terrified teenager fighting to survive. She is fighting to keep Prim alive. She's fighting to keep her mom alive. She's fighting for Gale even though I hate Gale as a character even in the movies.
Shut the fuck up! Know your fucking place, trash!
Teresa does not have a driving force behind any of her actions. And honestly, I'm more on the side of the people that would want to assassinate her, because she makes decisions willy-nilly. She doesn't put a thought behind them. Katniss had to put a lot of thought into how she was going to win the Hunger Games when it boiled down to 2 tributes being allowed to win. And it all relied on the fact that she doesn't actively wish to take anybody's life. She never wanted that. She just wants to go home. Teresa will make a choice, and it will have either a consequence that we can't see on the page, or no consequence, period. Teresa's not making choices for anything except her own selfishness, whereas Katniss, while still being selfish about wanting to survive, she is still actively doing it for Prim, her sister, who she volunteered for. She's still doing it for Gale. She's still doing it for her mom. She's doing it for Peeta. Who is Teresa doing anything for except, I like this, so I will do it, and the people that think that I'm wrong can just straight up disappear or be extremely inconvenienced for the rest of time. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, so let's circle back. Let's look at this critically. The style of writing is incredibly juvenile for a young adult book. The paragraphs of information about Teresa's days and lives around her are an incoherent mess due to how much Norman, the author, gets ahead of himself. This is the case for such a fast-paced read, feeling and taking so long to get through, because it has to be digested in parts. We spend time on details that don't actually matter later on in the story. It's this Chekhov's gun situation. If you set something up, you have to have it have an effect. You can't introduce a cannon in Act 1 and have it not go off by Act 3. There has to be a payoff or reward to some parts of the information. Showing, again, not telling, is visualizing in your brain the events happening on the page. You don't want somebody to tell you every single detail about an insignificant event, because then you're not going to have a complete picture of anything else happening. One big example, which I will throw up on my initial readout of my script here, is the description of Teresa's wedding gown. We're told more about Teresa's wedding dress than we are her own wedding. It is incredibly annoying every time a paragraph comes up with some sort of information or reference to later events, and yet the main event itself is just discarded in favor of details that don't usually matter. Sure, it's nice to have a visual in your head of this beautiful wedding gown. I mean, as it's described, it doesn't seem like something I wouldn't wear myself. Sarcasm. But you also have to give a little bit to the readers for their own imagination. Leave things up to interpretation. Leave the beauty of it a little bit subtle so that later, when you actually describe the wedding, having it be such a nice thing, we have a complete picture. We only have one part of a picture. You're supposed to show and not tell. You can't do something like this in a paragraph. And just as a side rant, I am designing my own wedding dress after my recent engagement, which I will show you one concept right here. Coming away again, even with the script in front of me, I barely spoke on events or substances in this book because of how forgettable it is. I've had to reread this book enough times to make notes because it's horrible for my ADHD to focus on. I have things to say solely about Teresa because all the other characters around her are accessories and yes-men to her madness. Let's briefly talk about her husband Steve, for example. He's only in this book about 300 some odd times, with about 200 only being his name mentioned. He serves Teresa's emotional needs by telling everybody else around her just how amazing she is. To go back to my point about characters disappearing or being mildly inconvenienced, we get introduced to her sister in the first chapter, and then never again. There's also lawyers and military watchers and some woman named Jan Struthers who ends up being a slave to Teresa's demands. One lawyer is stopped from ever taking any form of vehicle transportation ever again just because she does her job. Jan lost her job due to Teresa, then suddenly Teresa gave her a job as head of her finances department. I didn't even mention how Teresa imports a bunch of chipmunks to the UK so that she'll look good taking care of them to be able to present to the masses as an example that she will also be good to them. And then to circle more even into the point of Hal is barely noticeable because he doesn't really do anything. He just does only what Teresa says. He basically is just a concept used as a catch-all get-out-of-jail-free card, with God still having nothing to do with it. Now, if you weren't looking at this book to come after it in a critical standpoint, then maybe you could still have a suspension of disbelief about things. See, I came at this book already knowing that it was a bad book. I had formed my opinion before I went to hunt for even more problems. Usually you're not supposed to do that, but, I'm gonna write a parody, so give me a little slack. As somebody who had read it for the first time, my audience experience was just, this is a piece of shit either way. I don't think that considering the audience for anybody else, within even the age range that this book is supposed to be presenting itself, a young adult is not going to read this. A grown adult probably would put it down and never touch it. And an elementary schooler would have enough brain power to burn this book on sight. And that, my friends, I fear is our closing argument, our conclusion. We have finally made it. This video took me the span of 2 weeks. I got sick in the middle. I had to redo a lot of the editing because I hate Clipchamp. Don't recommend it. And I just have to say that this book, I feel like, could be something good. I will give it a lot of credit where credit is due. If you weren't taking it seriously, it would be the most batshit, acid trip, this edible ain't shit situation on paper. It is so funny to go in and nitpick it, but it's also so frustrating to do that, and half of my script, half the time, I was just going off on tangents because I was that, annoyed. If you did a drinking game, which I don't recommend, you would be dead. You would be dead taking shots at how many stupid, repetitive points are in this book. Yeah, so we are at the end. I hope that this video doesn't deter you from sticking around for any of my other parts that I'm going to be making. I don't know exactly how many, but I know that the second part of this is already in the works, where I redesigned the cover of Empress Teresa, and then we'll get into the writing and stuff like that much later. I fear in the future that this will be caught on to by Norman himself. He has a tendency to be chronically online and look at every single criticism of his book ever. It's a fear, but it's also a hope that I somehow get to him and break his ego. I'm not exactly trying to, I just really want to do something that will re-spark my enjoyment for writing, re-spark my enjoyment for art, because I've been so burnt out lately. But yeah, so, again, I am going off script here. I hope that you stick around for the next parts. I hope that you don't look at this video as something extremely serious, because I have done better book reviews when I was in middle school and didn't want to do the book reviews. And I'm just having fun. I really hope that you guys have fun with this too. So, if you have any criticisms, if you have any comments, anything like that, please leave them down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye! Oh my god, I stole my outro from Markiplier!